Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ksenia. I make videos for people who are going through the family immigration process. I'm not an attorney. My videos are based on public information, my own experience, and the experience of my subscribers. And the purpose of my channel is to give you guys the confidence to go through this process completely on your own. We're going to talk about bona fide marital evidence for both the forms I-130 if you are applying for a marriage-based green card and the form I-751 if you are applying for removal of conditions. And so I decided to do it in a more fun way, which is by ranking it through the system that you see on the screen. At the bottom, you will see all different types of evidences. I will be pulling up the evidence one by one, discussing it, and then ranking it according to what I believe and what I have seen from my experience and experience of others is the best evidence and what kind of evidence is maybe not the best. If you're not here to listen to me discuss different types of evidence or gain ideas, you can fast forward to the very end of this video to see the completed list. So, as you can see, we have ranking that is the best, which means it is verifiable evidence. It is very strong type of evidence, and it requires a lot of effort to obtain. Then we have solid evidence, which is verifiable evidence. It requires effort and requires trust to establish between spouses. The ranking in the middle is average, so this is the kind of evidence that is fairly easy to obtain, and it is the bare minimum that you should have in your green card or removal of conditions packet. Then we have subpar evidence, which it's not going to hurt your case if you include it, but it's the kind of evidence that's not very strong. It's not going to guarantee an approval. And the last type of ranking I created is cute. So it's not strong evidence, but it adds character to your case and it adds a little bit of more personality to your marriage. The first piece of evidence we got here is bank statements. So having a joint bank account is generally solid evidence. What you need to keep in mind with this kind of evidence is creating a new bank account right before filing your case could potentially be a red flag. If you have a relatively new marriage and you decided to open a new bank account right before sending out your case, that is fine. It is recommended, however, that this bank account is actively used. If you have bank statements of a few months to show that this bank account is actively used, it is a solid piece of evidence. So the next piece of evidence we have here is receipts from your wedding day. This is an average piece of evidence that you, at the bare minimum, should provide to show them where, when, and how you got married. Receipts from your wedding venue, maybe purchases for the flowers. That doesn't mean that you should be spending tens of thousands of dollars on your marriage. That is not necessarily what USCIS is looking for. But if your wedding day took a lot of preparation, a lot of booking, a lot of receipts, that is generally a good idea to include. Let's talk about this one, emergency contact list. This is an average piece of evidence that spouses generally should have. You can put your spouse as an emergency contact at your job, on your health insurance, at your doctor's office. This kind of evidence is easy to obtain. It doesn't take a long time. All right, let's do next one. This is 401k. Is a very good idea because it does require a lot of effort. That is not just something that you can set up by yourself. That is something that you will have to contact your employer about. The reason why this is such a good idea is because you can't just pull out from a 401k early. That is something that you're saving up for retirement, which shows that you and your spouse are planning to be together to retire together. Okay, next, a joint loan. Having a co-signer on a loan is a good idea. It is a solid piece of evidence because it shows a financial commitment from the both of you. And by the way, as we go through this evidence, you may notice that some of this is unattainable for you if your spouse resides overseas. And so in the average rating column, I will make sure to put as much evidence that doesn't necessarily require your spouse to be residing with you in the United States. I did make a video that I will link under this video that talks about additional steps you can take to add your foreign national spouse to your tax returns and your bank account, even if they are overseas or even if they don't have a social security number. So definitely check out that video. All right, let's do this one. Selfies. We will talk about additional marital photographs, which you might guess falls under the average rating. However, selfies, I personally would say, fall under subpar evidence because it is easily manipulated. It will not necessarily hurt your case, but if you are sending photographs of your relationship that only consists of selfies, that can raise some questions and concern from USCIS. Okay, let's do this one. Again, that is just my opinion, but having some kind of proof of you converting to your spouse's religion or your spouse converting to your religion. Maybe there is documentation from your place of worship, your church. Maybe there is some kind of religious contract that you sign. I think that this is a very big commitment. Some religions require you to go through school, to go through classes in order to be able to join that religion. In my personal opinion, I think this is a very, very good piece of evidence showing spiritual connection between you and your spouse. All right, next, utility bills. So utility bills, I would say, is a bare minimum average piece of evidence that you should have. If you have separate bank accounts, you can show that both of your bank accounts are paying into this utility bill, or that you have a joint bank account, and in that joint bank account, you should be demonstrating payments over time for these various utilities. Or you can show a printout from the actual utility company of you both paying these bills. So it doesn't require you to have a joint bank account to pay, as long as you can demonstrate that both of you are paying for these utilities together. Or you can show, for example, that you are consistently paying the gas bill and then your spouse is consistently paying the electric bill for the same address. That is also an acceptable piece of evidence. All right, let's do this one. A joint credit card or an authorized user on a credit card. So this one is an average piece of evidence, and it is also very easy to obtain. Unlike opening a joint bank account, which requires some effort on behalf of the both of you, this is something that one of you or both of you interchangeably can do from your online bank account or online credit card account. Let's do this one. Having a government bond together or having any kind of joint investments, stocks, it requires a lot of verification. If, for example, you have ever created a joint investment account, say on Vanguard, you will notice that that company will require you to go through a quite lengthy verification process. It's not something where you can just add your spouse's name to that account. They will go through channels of verifying your identity, your background checks, and then you will have to physically wait for a piece of mail from them and special verification steps in order to confirm this account. So again, having any kind of investment is one of the best pieces of evidence. Let's do this one. Joint library cards, memberships, or a joint gym membership. So this is a cute piece of evidence. It is not a strong piece of evidence, but it does add character to your relationship, and I still think you should include it. This kind of evidence shows your day-to-day life activities, that you are sharing hobbies. So I don't see why not. Let's do, so this one is copies of mail that you receive at the same address. Some of you may struggle with, maybe you are not able to add your spouse to your lease or to your mortgage, to your deed. whatever, right? That could be a difficult thing to do. You can at the very least show that both of you receive important mail at the same address. You can show them that you receive maybe certain subscriptions. Maybe you have a magazine subscription, maybe you have a professional subscription, any government agencies, your bills that are coming in at the same mailing address, even if they're not under a joint name for both of you. So you can just make a copy of the actual envelope showing that both of you receive mail at this address. And then what you would do essentially is you would bring these pieces of mail with you to your interview if necessary. Okay, next, taxes, tax returns, jointly filed tax returns. That is a solid piece of evidence. I would even say it falls somewhere over here between average and solid. And I will even give you one more. I do have a video talking about how to add your spouse to your jointly filed tax returns, even if your spouse resides overseas. It is at least a bare minimum that USCIS expects from you, if nothing else. Let's do this one. Mail and letters, love letters, notes that you sent to each other. It is not the strongest piece of evidence, but in my opinion, it is cute and it adds character. It can also add to the discussion if you do end up having an interview. Okay, next, third-party affidavits from family, friends, co-workers, people that know you best. These third-party affidavits is not a requirement, but it is a great piece of evidence to have to prove to USCIS that other people are aware of your marriage. It is one of the biggest red flags to USCIS if nobody but the two of you are aware of your marriage. I would say it falls between average and subpar because anybody could write it. You can have your neighbor write it, or you can con your friend into writing you one. So in USCIS's eyes, this is not the strongest piece. There is no limit on how many affidavits you should include from both sides. Now, for the I-751, if you ended up getting a divorce from your spouse and now you're filing for removal of conditions independently, having a signed affidavit from your ex-spouse would put you in the solid piece of evidence. So having your ex-spouse advocate on your behalf to let USCIS know that you did get married for a real legitimate reason, things didn't work out, but they're still okay with you getting a green card, is something that USCIS will definitely consider for your removal of conditions case. Having joint driver's licenses registered to the same address is a bare minimum evidence that you could show that you are cohabitating together. Now, that is the kind of evidence that not everyone will be able to obtain, especially if you're located in the kind of state where DMV doesn't allow foreign nationals to obtain driver's licenses, but I definitely think you should consider. So sending them a copy of both of your driver's licenses showing that you are registered to the same address is a great piece of evidence to have. Let's do this one. Screenshots of your chats and conversations. I personally think that this is by no means required for your case. I don't think that is the strongest piece of evidence because, again, it can be easily manipulated. But it is still a good piece of evidence to show your day-to-day interactions. Any screenshots that show that you have been talking for a long time, maybe even scrolling all the way to the beginning of your chat to show when you first started talking to your now spouse, especially if it is in your native language. I would personally not go through the hassle of translating your texts, and I personally would keep my privacy as much as I possibly can, but if you choose to include it, I don't see why not. All right, let's see. Birth certificates of children that you have together. This is a great piece of evidence, and it does require a lot of effort and a lot of time. So having birth certificates of children is definitely one of the best pieces of evidence to show that you and your spouse are establishing a legal, a financial, and an emotional connection. In the same kind of way, if you have any adoption certificates for the purposes of immigration, adoption is not required in order for you to have this child as your stepchild and to possibly petition for them in the future. But if you do end up going through an actual legal adoption of this child, again, that is one of the best pieces of evidence, as it shows a great deal of commitment. Same applies to any kind of maybe fertility treatments, any kind of other ways of you guys having children together. If you are maybe a same-sex couple, showing that you guys are planning to go through adoption of a child, that is one of the best pieces of evidence. So next, copies of receipts of large purchases. In my personal opinion, it is a subpar piece of evidence, but even better if you include receipt copies of any kinds of purchases you made. So let's say, for example, you purchase wedding bands. So you can show the copy of that receipt and then the actual picture of that purchase. Maybe you financed furniture together, had a monthly payment plan for an electronic purchase like a TV, for example, or something like that, a large purchase that you made for your spouse or your spouse made for you. You can back it up with the actual picture of that item that you purchased to add more value. All right. Let's do renting an apartment, a house together, having a joint lease is a solid piece of evidence. It is verifiable. Having your landlord's contact information on that lease is also a good idea so that they can verify that you guys indeed are renting together. If for some reason you are unable to add your spouse to your lease, at the very least, have your landlord write you a letter testifying that you two indeed live together and pay rent to this person together. Let's do this one. Movie tickets, concert tickets, tickets for events and activities. It is not a strong piece of evidence at all. Very often those tickets don't have names on them, but it adds the value of you guys spending time together. And even better, if you can make a copy of that activity followed by a photo of you guys, the value of that ticket or that activity will go up if you can back it up with proof. And while we are at it, let's talk about social media posts together. So having photographs of you together, like selfies we talked about, is not the strongest, but if you add that kind of selfie or any other photo with your spouse in different places from different times onto your social media, that increases the value of that evidence, that increases the weight of that evidence, because now other people are becoming aware of your relationship, of your marriage. In addition, if you can keep your social media public, USCIS does lurk. They do look at your social media accounts, and even if it is private, they're going to try to find a way to discover your social media. But if you want, for the purposes of you obtaining a green card, to testify about your relationship, you can make your social media public. If you have a lot of posts together, a lot of activities that you do together in different places, social media screenshots can be included with your bona fide marital photographs in your file, and in my opinion that is bare minimum. All right, let's do this one, including a sonogram of a baby. So from the doctor's office, I would say it would be fair to put it somewhere in between, just because the baby is not born yet, and you can even maybe have a photo of you going to the appointment together with your spouse, a photo of you guys holding the sonogram shot together. That is also a great piece of evidence. Let's do this one, joint mortgage. Now that is one of the best pieces of evidence, because buying a house together, buying a property together is a huge deal. It requires a lot of paperwork. It requires a lot of financial commitment from both of you. So showing a joint deed, so I'm going to actually put the deed here as well. So having a mortgage, having a copy of your deed and mortgage statements to show that you guys are making payments together, that is a great piece of evidence. If you are still in the process of buying the house, but you haven't finalized yet, you can include copies of your mortgage pre-approvals, or maybe copies of your offers that you have put down on properties together. You know, buying a house is a lengthy process. Right now, a lot of people are struggling to afford a home, but at the least, if you put an offer on a property together, that is a very, very good piece of evidence. Next, let's talk about travel itineraries, travel tickets, flight tickets, itineraries of you guys going on trips together, or proof of your spouse visiting you if you are living overseas and your petitioner coming to see you or you coming to see them. That is a great piece of evidence to show that they are consistently traveling to meet you. Even if they're not visiting you, but you guys are meeting somewhere halfway through, showing those itineraries. And then I would even say, aside from showing them the copies of those itineraries, follow them up immediately with photos of you guys traveling together. That is a good piece of evidence. Next, wedding photos. Even if you went to a court to sign documents, that is an average, I would say, bare minimum piece of evidence that you should have. I don't think USCIS is necessarily looking for you to have an extravagant, huge wedding with a huge venue and 500 guests, but at the least, commemorating the day you got married in a photographic evidence, still a great idea. Let's do this one. So this is the kind of idea I came up with, is a pet adoption certificate that you may have together. And if you can also follow it up with pictures of you guys with this pet, that would be even better. All right, let's do this one. Having a will, I think, is a good, solid piece of evidence. All right, next, photographs with family members and friends. Now, this is what I'm talking about, having solid photographic evidence. We talked about selfies earlier. Selfies can be easily done. However, photographs with family and friends, that requires some effort, and you should be including photographs with your case. I see attorneys not recommend including photos of your relationship and waiting until the interview. My question is why? Why would you want to wait for an interview? Ideally, you want to avoid an interview. So including cutesy pieces of evidence down below over here and photographs together, you should absolutely be sending it with your initial packet. Same applies for I-751. You should still be including photographs. Let's do this one. Having any kind of insurance policy together. I'm going to include the auto and the health insurance together. I think it is a solid piece of evidence. Even if they don't have a social security number, you can still add them to your insurance. And I did talk about it in another video. Sometimes they will give you grief about it, but there's definitely insurance policies where you can add your spouse, and even if they tell you otherwise, you need to press them to do that for you. You can try to contact their manager, try to contact somebody higher up, but it is not impossible. Okay, let's do this one. So this is an icon I made for CashApp / PayPal / any other, MoneyGram type situation. If you and your spouse are sending each other money to support each other, sending screenshots, sending statements from that company, even if nothing else, for example, if you and your spouse are unable to combine financials together just yet, so for example, you couldn't add your spouse to your rent, or you couldn't open a joint bank account yet, at the very least, you can show that you guys are exchanging finances. Let's do this one. This is a joint Spotify account, but it can include really any kind of account, subscription services that will ask you guys to verify that you are living together. So for example, Spotify has a duo plan, which means that you both will be receiving Spotify Premium at a lesser price if you guys are residing together. So a Spotify Duo account requires you to upload your driver's license to them to verify that you guys are residing at the same address, and you can even explain it to the USCIS officer in a form of a letter or during your interview to show that you reside together at the same address. And it is a cute piece of evidence. Again, it is not the strongest. It's actually not really strong at all, but it is a good idea. Next, call logs, cell records from your cell phone company, or you can take screenshots in your WhatsApp showing that you two are calling each other. It will show dates and times when you guys called each other, either by video call or just a phone call. So that is a good piece of evidence. This piece of evidence is something I came up with just on the spot, and that is pictures of your guys inside of your apartment or your house, your dwelling where you two reside together, how it is decorated. You can add little explanations to these photos. This next piece of evidence is your geolocations, your GPS locations in your Google Maps. This is a piece of evidence that I didn't really see anybody else talk about. Evidence of your frequently visited locations from your Google Maps or any other kind of navigation apps. Your phone is tracking you all the time. These kind of GPS locations that you guys have together can show that you are residing at the same address, that you're visiting all the same locations. If you have very little proof of you guys residing together, this can at least show that you are located in the same address. All right, let's talk about the last couple of pieces. One I have over here is student ID. For example, if you and your spouse met at a college, making copies of your student IDs and even maybe school transcripts to show that you have attended school at the same time. Maybe you can even make copies of your graduation certificates. Maybe you even had the same major and that is how you met. And finally, I'm going to include it like over here somewhere, is including a testimonial from you and your spouse. So aside from third-party affidavits that we talked about here of other people talking about your relationship, you can also talk about your own relationship and write a letter addressed to USCIS explaining kind of like your story, how you met, how you decided to, become a couple and then get married, plans you have for the future. That kind of testimonial is actually a frequently used piece of evidence that can be included in your case. Now, what I would say is whatever you write in that testimonial obviously must be truth and nothing but the truth, because if they call you in for an interview and start asking you questions about things that you wrote in there, and if your answers don't match, then maybe that could be a red flag for them. So whatever you write, don't embellish it. Just write from the heart. I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it would be more fun this way than just giving you a boring list of evidence. Let me know what kind of evidence you guys included in your case. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you guys in my next videos. Bye.